Welcome our audience today. For anyone who is watching us, I am super, super excited to have Stephanie Turner on the call. Stephanie, would you take a few seconds to introduce yourself and also tell us what are some of the passion projects you're working on?
That will be interesting, the qualifier of passion
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of projects. But thank you for inviting me to your podcast. This is pretty cool. And I am our Vice President for Diversity and Chief Sustainability Officer for a not-for-profit organization called MITRE. And I have been doing, I would say, for the most part of my career, diversity and inclusion for the 25 plus years. MITRE is my seventh industry. So that keeps it spicy in terms of how each organization and industry interprets, defines, and the work that they do in diversity. Here at MITRE, though, I oversee several functions. So accessibility, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and social innovation. And that in itself is pretty cool because my roles and functions have stretched me in certain ways where it keeps the juices flowing. I don't get bored easily. And that in itself is a passion of mine, is to continue to grow in various ways. And I've had that opportunity in my 4.5 years with MITRE, and we're based here in McLean, Virginia. So projects besides that is always just, working with my team. I've loved every team that I've hired, developed, to see them grow in different areas. Sometimes they don't stay in the function that they were hired, but I think being a inclusive leader, you're there to support your team. And so for me, being mainly an introvert, I tend to have extroverts. That to me is very exciting too, because I do glean a lot from their background, their perspective, and all the great creative ideas that they have for us to implement.
So the diversity and sustainability role is in many ways, and you're the expert at it, so feel free to correct. But there is no playbook for it, right? And there's only a handful of leaders that have sort of been able to excel in this role and really get to the top. I know you're one of them. You've done this for a long time and for very successful organizations. What is that one quality, Stephanie, that has helped you get to where you are today in your career?
Yeah, good question. The funny thing is I had no idea when I was younger that I would be doing diversity work, accessibility work, or sustainability. So the one trait I would say for me was always being open. Again, being bored and not always wanting to do the same thing or the cookie cutter approach. I was always receptive to others that may tap me on the shoulder or having that curiosity, like let me learn more about that. So I think having an open mind, never say no at first, even when you think it's a crazy idea or you don't have a lot of experience in it. Again, that's having that growth mindset of seeing, what more can I do to own my skills, experiences. And so that's kind of led me on this journey to where now I have some passion point and starting my career in marketing. When I came out of grad school, I thought that's where I was going to be. And then that wasn't enough. I always had I guess, a mindset of diversity in terms of market segmentation and some of the companies just kind of having one way is for everybody. And I knew that wasn't the case. So I kind of accidentally, kind of went into diversity, fell in love, still like to do marketing, but more from a multicultural marketing perspective. So again, thinking about the impact on those that you're trying to serve, whether it's a product or a service. And that leads into the E that we talk about in diversity and inclusion. A lot of people just say DEI, and they think it's just one term, and each letter means something different, and it's part of an equation. So I've also been very good at being strategic and connecting the dots. My background is in economics, so having that business acumen and learning, I would say, business operations, financial responsibility has helped me on the diversity side. And a lot of people think you don't have to be good with numbers. I'm very analytic, and so having a nice balance between some of the more business acumen and being good with numbers. My minor was accounting, and also having the people side. I care a lot about people, as I mentioned, my team in the past, and so having that humility, knowing that you don't have all the answers, and I'm learning that still now. And where I am in my career, that there's always others that can help, that have more expertise. And as long as you're there to guide, to listen, and sometimes put them in the driver's seat where I don't always have to be leading the way, which gets more into that inclusive leadership skills, being humble, being open, being vulnerable as well, sharing more of who you are as a person. I think is key to where I am today.
That's a great answer, and I think that's so true about almost any career path that you follow, right? Just having that curiosity of mind, being open to opportunities, and and not to say the least, just being flexible, right? Because there isn't a linear path to success. So just being open and flexible goes a long way. Um, DEI has become more politicized than any of us want to. Um, and one of the sort of argument against DEI has been that it is somehow against meritocracy. What do you tell people that feel that way?
Yeah, I always say that all of us, in my opinion, work hard and think we're doing the best to achieve and do well. And we have blind spots in terms of our privileges. And so when you're looking at diversity and our systems at play, our practices that are pretty much blind to most of us and hidden, it's more than just saying, earn your, bootstraps. I remember being told that when I was younger in my career and I started a young professional business resource group because I know we all have value. But there's more at play than just you as an individual thinking that you've worked hard. And we hear that story over and over and they wonder why they didn't get promoted. And so there's all these other issues or dynamics at play. So, whether you're a woman, whether you're a person of color, whether you're, identify with the LGBTQ plus community or have invisible disabilities, these are all what we call marginalized groups. And so when you just look at the history of society, they're usually weren't thought of in terms of any policies that we have in organizations. And so you have to reckon with the truth and really study your systems and see what's going on that is bigger than just the individual. And that's why that word equity is so important because, historically, a lot of marginalized groups have been excluded. They weren't given that same access. They weren't mentored or they have, based in history, had time to catch up. If we'll say centuries of folks were always given certain benefits. We look at the US, people expect, in 1 year that you're supposed to be where they are when they've had decades of grooming and nurturing and opportunities that a lot of us take for granted. And so if you didn't have that, there's going to be this huge gap. And you see that at play when we talk about large groups and populations where it's more than just the individual. And so that's why, organizations like Quintrix is what I love because they understand those cultural nuances and dynamics. And all that we're trying to say is we need to be more equitable in terms of how do we provide access, opportunities, and resources to everyone, not just the same groups who probably didn't think they had resources and access. A lot of it is legacy and, whatever family you're born into, as they say, the silver spoon, but not to put down someone else who, based on bias and stereotypes you may think didn't work hard. And this is when we talk about white privilege, or you could talk about male privilege, is growing up and working. You probably would say, working hard was great, but you would never associate it with you didn't get a role or position because of your skin color or because of your gender. And if you haven't had those thoughts, then that's a privilege. Where marginalized groups are always wondering, is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm gay? Is it because I'm black? And so if you don't have those thoughts, that means you are part of a privileged group. Doesn't say something bad about you, but again, it's those systems at play that we are part of every day. And for us as practitioners is to recognize that and see how you can mitigate that based on the policies and the practices, not the person or the individual. So long response, but a lot of people want to just kind of nip it in the bud and say, well, I worked hard, I earned this, you go figure it out on your own. And they don't realize that the environment, that ecosystem they're part of has helped them in many ways that we take for granted.
And just to add to that, Stephanie, I think people tend to forget history faster than we would all like to.
Yeah.
It's not been over 60 years since women could not vote, right, in this
Mhm.
country. A lot of women could not attend school and education up until 100, probably like 70 or 80 years ago. So people forget that this is not far back,
Not
right?
that
And it's
far.
all
Yep.
the work and effort that activists and forward-thinking individuals have put in to get us to where we are today. Having said that, have there been, in your opinion, elements of DEI that um, you feel have not worked? Um, yeah.
um, it's so hard to put everything in a bubble. It's still a relatively new area. I think still the lack of just basic understanding
Right.
of what the words, the letters. And I remember when I first got started, it was more around affirmative action or equal, opportunities and compliance base. And, it's had its evolution like anything else has. And, we weren't using those words equity or even inclusion. And everyone wants to talk about the nomenclature now, which I think is silly. And it seems like it's always an easy target. We never talk about this with other industries. Like, instead of engineering, what's another name, or marketing or finance? Or we don't say, when is it going to be over? When do we know we've had success? Do we need to have finance or an engineering functioning more? We only seem to do that about areas such as diversity or sustainability. And so those are offensive to me, and where people don't understand that it is a practice and it does take some training and to be really good at it. Unfortunately, most people think they can do the job and don't really, in my opinion, have all the tools and the history to do it well and be effective, and know that it's just another business function like any other component of an organization. So when you have folks that are either selected for superficial reasons, then that's going to taint the industry overall. And again, not understanding our history and knowing that it's more than just what you visibly see. Most of us do not want to be identified by that, but that's all people talk about is what they see on the outside, which represents less than 1% of who we are. But it's an easy target. It's
Mm.
visible, and people speculate. They may think they know who you are based on what you look like, but we always say your sense of belonging and identity is with that person, that you need to make the time to get to know them. And a lot of times you're surprised by what you think you see on the outside. It's like, just don't judge a book on its cover. So all of that comes into play. It's simplified, it's watered down, and hopefully in the end, most of us still have the same goal and objectives, regardless of what you want to call it, on the outside. And it's still something that's evolving. And like I said, there's more talk around the word equity and what that really means, and getting away from what I would say are all the ways that we're similar and different, which is my basic definition for diversity. I keep it simple. It's a noun. As long as you have two of anything, whether we're talking about people, places, or things, we can compare and contrast all day. That's diversity to me. That's the easy part. The harder part is, once we're together, how are we going to operate? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to work together? How am I going to make sure that I'm leveraging the best of who you are on your skills and talents. And the only way you can do that is to talk to the other person, which is becoming harder to do on those social skills, active listening, not asking questions to prove the other person is wrong, but to better understand what they're saying. And so these are all of those, what I now call smart skills around being humble, caring, which we need more of that. And that's something that is a passion project that we're working on, at MITRE, is just around dignity, grace, and respect. We got to learn to be kind, learn to agree about something that we don't care for. As we say, it's okay to agree to disagree. Doesn't mean we hate the other person and we're never going to talk and be so polarized, but we have to really get back to the basics of, we would say our forefathers and mothers on just treating everyone with just basic dignity. And how can we really learn to get along without pointing the finger and doing the blame and shame, which doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And based on your experience, Stephanie, why do you think certain organizations struggle with diversity or just diversity goals in general?
Yeah, I think again, because they don't understand the true definition of what it is, and having people maybe that maybe been certified. I remember I got certified when I was getting started, and a lot of it starts with self-awareness of who you are, but understanding your hot buttons. But it's a profession, and you have to be trained, you have to be educated. It's a lot of, as I say, learning about other cultures. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I like to do that in my personal life as well as professionally. I'm just naturally am like that. I love, learning about other cultures and ensuring that I'm doing what I can too to expand my own social networks. So we don't do a lot of negative stereotypes and doing, this or that, or, again, the ors and the buts instead of both and. And so the more you can surround yourself with people who are different than yourself, that is great for the practice as well. But it takes a lot of discipline, and there's lots of ways to do that. And I think most people don't do that. So it's again getting back to when can we check the box, and this is not a compliance thing. So it's all depends on how you define the words and your approach to the work, and knowing that it's not a quick fix. I think human dynamics is very difficult and challenging, and we wear a lot of hats. So it's never going to be easy, and I think most organizations are going to get it wrong. This is why we've been doing this for decades, and if you look at organizations, it still looks the same.
A lot of work we do, Stephanie, at Quintrix is around early career talent development,
Yeah.
right? And we see tremendous opportunities as far as the diversity space is concerned in that demographic, because you have an opportunity to cultivate sort of ground up, right? Or rather, even invest in this talent ground up to then make the uh, playing field level, if you will. Um, what has been your experience working with earlier career talent? What are some challenges and opportunities there for organizations, especially from the DEI space?
Yeah, working in, now my seventh organization, I always say it's the easy part is to attract. And it's easier to do that at the entry level. Why internship programs are very good. You're going to see a lot of visible diversity. The hard part always is the I, the inclusion, and the E. Is yes, we can bring in folks, have them get started, their first job out of college or even coming out of high school. It's that environment, So again, getting back to the culture, and where is the development, the mentoring, the role models, the representation across the organization, even externally, if you look at the boards of companies, is that a very visibly diverse group too. You look at, the policies of the company. And so again, it's those systems at play that, yeah, if you look at most organizations, the lower levels of an organization are going to be more visibly diverse than the senior roles. However, you don't see that with majority group, white men and women. So that's what you're really looking at. And again, it gets back to a lot of, of the systems at play that help some groups and not others. And it's something that organizations need to really look at on, let's see where we can mitigate those gaps. Is it from promotions from a certain level? And this is where you have companies that do it well, is look at trend analysis, right? So if you look at your at least 3 to 5 years and see who's being attracted to the organization, you can start with the interview process, who gets on interview panels, and then if someone's in a role, where do they make sure that they are being developed and mentored? Are they getting those development opportunities? Are they staying in a role too long than some other groups? And so it's a lot of data analysis. And that's the only way you're going to know exactly what type of strategy to have. You can't have one big strategy for everybody. Some companies I work for where we're like, oh, we have an issue on retaining a certain population when they reach director level.
Mm.
What can we do? Or we have a situation where it's a geography thing, folks in this location of one of our departments or sectors is not getting the same access and opportunities. So it's going to take several, I would say, strategies based on the demographics, level in the organization, location. And it's not a quick, easy fix where we just lump everyone together and say, oh, we have a women problem. Well, what type? Is it executive assistants? Is it people who are non-exempt? Is it, a certain sector under a leader? And you can only do that if you have a good HR data, I would say, analytics team, where some companies I work for have done that, and you can be more strategic and
Yeah.
not guess.
Great answer. Thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. Um, what can you share about your knowledge of the recruit, train, deploy model in general, right? We talked about opportunities and challenges in the early talent space. In your opinion, how is the recruit, train, deploy model either different, or what does it do that some of the other traditional
Yeah.
talent models don't?
I love that it's comprehensive. So again, it's not the easy part of attracting, recruiting that
Right.
talent.
Right.
It has the training piece too, component. It's more customized. So I would say that's where you look at the equity lens that Quintrix has, which I don't think a lot of companies do. And once someone is hired and trained, you don't just say, okay, you're on your own. So I like the deploy part too, which I don't think, at least for me, I haven't seen a lot of models or organizations do all three. So that part is what I really liked about Quintrix too, is continuing that relationship and support with talent that's in an organization to ensure as best as possible, that they have retention, that they're going to stay there longer, get the growth, the experience, the need to excel in that organization, and that they would have the skills, no matter where they are, to for what I would call, generational wealth. How can again break that system of seeing folks that to me are just as bright, brilliant, and haven't had that same nurturing and support earlier on. So I think that's the key. I think that's a strength. It's an asset to have all three components. And I think Quintrix understands those cultural nuances and dynamics where we like to say that proximity is what's lacking with a lot of companies and even those in diversity is it's quick for people to say, oh, we have an answer. This is what we're going to do, but have no idea what the lived experiences are of those that they're trying to help.
Mhm.
And that's important to hear from them, include them in the process and not the organization saying we know what's best for you. And that's where you don't have success.
Right. And anything of value takes takes time, right?
It
It needs to be it needs to be a long-term view, not a quick fix solution, right? And that's what we always aim to do, right? This is not, like you said, just a quick fix of your talent channels or quick fix of where you find your talent from, and bring them on board, but what are the tools, experiences that you can provide to these individuals to uh, make them successful, not just in their first job, right? It's
right.
just setting them up for
Career.
success for their careers. So this was a delightful conversation, Stephanie. Thank you so much for sharing your Friday afternoon to talk about a topic that's near and dear to me and to Quintrix. I look forward to seeing you soon, and great chatting with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.